Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the English Conversation Podcast. We are so happy that you're joining us again today because this episode is going to help a lot of English learners who feel stuck between understanding English and actually speaking it confidently in real conversations.
Absolutely. And honestly, this is one of the most common frustrations language learners experience. Many people can understand English movies, podcasts, YouTube videos, and even think in English when they are alone. But the moment someone asks them a question directly, their confidence suddenly disappears.
Exactly. And if that has ever happened to you, please understand that this does not mean your English is bad. It does not mean you are failing. In fact, it usually means you are closer to fluency than you realize.
That's true. A lot of learners think fluency means speaking perfectly without hesitation. But real fluency is much more about comfort, communication, and confidence. Even native speakers pause, repeat themselves, and make mistakes during conversations.
Today, we're going to talk about why speaking feels difficult under pressure and how you can train your brain and mouth to work together more naturally. We're also going to share practical exercises that can slowly transform the way you speak English in everyday life.
And the best part is that none of these techniques require expensive courses or 8 hours of study every day. Most of them can be practiced in just a few minutes daily if you stay consistent.
Let's start with an important question. Why does English feel easy when you are alone, but difficult when another person is listening to you?
The answer is pressure. When you're alone, your brain feels relaxed. There's no fear of judgment, no time pressure, and no anxiety about making mistakes. But during a real conversation, your brain suddenly starts multitasking. You're listening, thinking, translating emotions, building sentences, checking grammar, remembering vocabulary, and worrying about mistakes all at the same time. Exactly. And that mental overload slows everything down. That's why many learners suddenly forget simple words they already know very well.
I think every English learner has experienced that moment where they finish a conversation and suddenly remember the perfect sentence 10 minutes later. Oh, yes, all the time. After the conversation ends, the pressure disappears and the brain starts working normally again. That's why speaking confidence is not only about knowledge, it's also about training your brain to stay calm while communicating in real time. There's actually a name for this experience. It's called the performance gap. The performance gap is the difference between your private English ability and your public English ability. In private, you may sound fluent, relaxed, and expressive. But in public conversations, your speaking suddenly becomes shorter, slower, and less natural. And many learners misunderstand this completely. They assume the problem is vocabulary or grammar, so they spend more years memorizing words and studying rules, when in reality, the real issue is automatic speaking practice. Exactly. Speaking is a skill, and skills improve through repetition and real usage, not only through studying. It's similar to learning a sport. Reading about basketball will not automatically make you good at basketball. At some point, you have to physically play the game. Speaking English works the same way. Your brain needs repeated speaking experience until producing English feels natural instead of stressful. Another important thing learners need to understand is that thinking and speaking are not identical skills.
That's why long English conversations can feel physically tiring for learners.
So, how do we train the mouth?
First, practice tongue twisters slowly and clearly. Don't focus on speed in the beginning. Focus on clean pronunciation and muscle control.
Second, read short paragraphs out loud every day. Reading aloud helps connect your eyes, brain, and mouth together.
Third, exaggerate difficult sounds. If you struggle with TH, R, or W sounds, practice them repeatedly and slowly.
Many learners avoid difficult sounds because they feel embarrassed, but repetition is exactly what creates improvement.
And remember, the goal is not perfection. The goal is comfort and confidence.
The second technique is shadow speaking, which is one of the best exercises for speaking speed and fluency.
This exercise is simple. Listen to an English speaker and repeat their words immediately after hearing them.
It's similar to learning a sport. Reading about basketball will not automatically make you good at basketball. At some point, you have to physically play the game.
At first, it feels difficult because your brain tries to understand every word perfectly before speaking.
Another important thing learners need to understand is that thinking and speaking are not identical skills.
That's why long English conversations can feel physically tiring for learners.
So, how do we train the mouth?
First, practice tongue twisters slowly and clearly. Don't focus on speed in the beginning. Focus on clean pronunciation and muscle control. Second, read short paragraphs out loud every day. Reading aloud helps connect your eyes, brain, and mouth together. Third, exaggerate difficult sounds. If you struggle with TH, R, or W sounds, practice them repeatedly and slowly. Many learners avoid difficult sounds because they feel embarrassed, but repetition is exactly what creates improvement. And remember, the goal is not perfection. The goal is comfort and confidence. The second technique is shadow speaking, which is one of the best exercises for speaking speed and fluency. This exercise is simple. Listen to an English speaker and repeat their words immediately after hearing them. It's similar to learning a sport. Reading about basketball will not automatically make you good at basketball. At some point, you have to physically play the game. At first, it feels difficult because your brain tries to understand every word perfectly before speaking. But over time, your speaking speed becomes faster and more automatic. Shadow speaking also improves pronunciation, rhythm, intonation, and listening comprehension at the same time.
One important tip is to choose content that feels comfortable. Don't start with extremely fast interviews or complicated documentaries.
Start with clear speakers, calm conversations, or podcasts designed for learners.
And remember, consistency matters more than intensity. 10 minutes every day is far more effective than 1 hour once a week.
Another major reason learners freeze during conversations is because they try to create every sentence from scratch.
That takes too much mental energy during real-time communication.
Instead, learners should build speaking patterns and sentence stems.
Sentence stems are common conversation starters that native speakers use constantly.
To be honest, what I mean is, the main reason is, in my opinion, one thing I've noticed is,
These phrases act like shortcuts. They give your brain time to continue building the rest of the sentence.
And because they're already memorized deeply, they reduce panic during conversations.
This is one of the fastest ways to sound more natural immediately.
Let's talk about something emotional for a moment. Fear.
Fear is one of the biggest obstacles in language learning.
Many learners stay silent not because they lack vocabulary, but because they are afraid of sounding wrong.
They fear embarrassment, judgment, or awkward moments.
But the truth is that mistakes are a completely normal part of communication.
Native speakers make mistakes every single day. They forget words, restart sentences, and mispronounce things too.
The difference is that native speakers continue speaking anyway.
Exactly. Confidence does not come from never making mistakes. Confidence comes from learning how to continue even after mistakes happen. That mindset changes everything. This leads perfectly into our next technique, recovery phrases.
Recovery phrases help you stay calm when your brain suddenly freezes during a conversation.
Instead of panicking, you use simple phrases to buy time and continue naturally.
Let me think for a second. That's an interesting question. What I'm trying to say is, I can't remember the exact word.
These phrases sound completely natural because native speakers use them all the time.
Recovery phrases remove pressure because they remind you that conversations do not need to be perfect.
Communication is more important than perfection.
Let's create a simple daily routine that learners can realistically follow.
Step 1. Spend 5 minutes reading English out loud.
Step 2. Spend 5 to 10 minutes shadow speaking with audio.
Step 3. Practice sentence stems and recovery phrases.
Step 4. Talk to yourself in English about your day for a few minutes.
This routine may sound simple, but consistency creates enormous long-term improvement.
Many learners underestimate how powerful small daily habits become after several months.
Confidence is built through evidence.
Exactly. Every successful conversation gives your brain proof that you are improving.
That's why small wins matter so much.
Maybe today you spoke for 2 minutes without freezing. Maybe tomorrow you asked a question confidently. Those moments slowly reshape your identity as an English speaker.
Fluency is not created overnight. It's built conversation by conversation.
And the most important thing is continuing even when progress feels slow.
Let's talk honestly about timelines, because many learners expect instant results.
In the first week, you may only notice small improvements, like smoother pronunciation or slightly faster responses.
After a month of daily practice, speaking usually feels less exhausting.
After several months, learners often notice major changes in confidence, speed, and comfort during conversations.
The important thing is consistency, not perfection.
You do not need perfect grammar to communicate effectively.
You need courage, repetition, and patience.
So, let's review today's most important ideas.
First, understand that speaking difficulty under pressure is normal.
Second, train your mouth muscles with daily pronunciation practice.
Third, use shadow speaking to improve speaking.
But growth often requires quiet. Some of the most important realizations happen in silence. People discover what truly matters when distractions disappear.
That's uncomfortable for many people at first. But eventually, silence becomes calming instead of frightening. It creates space for reflection.
Before we finish, I want listeners to remember something important. Life does not require perfection. You do not need to have everything figured out today.
You simply need to become a little more conscious, a little more present, a little more intentional with your time and attention.
And honestly, small moments matter more than people realize. A peaceful morning, a meaningful conversation, a quiet walk outside.
Those ordinary experiences often become the most valuable parts of life. Not because they are dramatic, but because they are real. Presence gives them meaning.
So, if someone listening today feels overwhelmed or lost, I hope they remember this. You do not need to transform your entire life overnight. You only need to take one meaningful step forward.
One honest conversation. One small habit. One moment of courage. That's enough to begin creating change.
And most importantly, remember that your life is happening now, not someday in the future, not after everything becomes perfect.
Every day matters. Every conversation matters. Every moment of attention matters.
Remember that emotional communication is a skill that improves with practice. The more honestly and calmly you express yourself, the more confident you will become. And confidence grows step by step.
Thank you so much for spending time with us today. We truly appreciate you listening, learning, and practicing with us. And we hope to see you again very soon.
This is Anna. Take care of yourself and keep practicing your English every single day. And remember that your voice and your feelings matter.
And this is Jake. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep expressing yourself with confidence. Bye, everyone.